Hey and welcome to this Milla's Game Room semi-festive video because of the background scenery, which is, well, a couple of things I had lying around to get a bit of a Christmas feel, but this video is not about Christmas or the holidays in general, because in Japan on December the 12th, I believe it was the 12th, I'm going to double check before I upload this because it will be up on the day, it is Vita's 10th birthday, and it came out there in Japan and then came out in the West February 2012 in the West. So, yeah, 10 years ago, the world was graced with this amazing little portable console, which I still play to this day. It's still like a great console, and it's still like one of my favourite systems to play. Although obviously, like nowadays, it's not like it's basically a retro console now. There's no more new games coming out for it, and the only things that will come out for it at this point are a small handful of physical releases that have been done since, well, almost 2 years ago, because physical manufacturing for Asia ended in in the West it ended in 2019, but in Asia it ended in 2020, I think. But that's the whole thing there, because in this little video I'm going to talk about the Vita and some of my favourite games on it, and I've picked a sizable batch from my personal collection. It's about half it, I think. I've got another stack of games which I'm not going to talk about because some of them I've not even played, or there's nothing I can really add on that front. So I'm going to start with I'm going to talk about games that make a large impact on me personally, my tastes, my interests, and certain things that kind of defined it with the Vita. Now, to preface this, most of these games will be either RPGs or visual novels. There's a couple of exceptions which I'll get onto, because that's basically what I played the most of on this Vita. That's what I personally knew it for, and a lot of people who played the Vita also knew it for these kind of things. Like, there was a huge indie scene as well that's still going to a bit. Like, it was still going long after people moved over to the Switch or moved on to the PS4, and it was still there. People love buying games for it, and it's kind of amazing actually. The fan base really showing up in spades for this console, and I definitely used to play it more. I had more games that I've got now. I had to sell a lot of them off, but I made sure to keep the ones that made the most impact on me. So I'm going to start with a game that was before I played Xenoblade, was my favourite game of all time, and is a game, if you've played a Vita or are interested in getting a Vita, this is a game that you'll probably have heard about, and it's, of course, Persona 4 Golden, which is the port of Persona 4, which, if you know what this game is, you already know what it is, basically, if you know anything about the Vita. And port of PS2 game was kind of considered to be the game that if you want a Vita to get this game, and it lives up to that hype. It's kind of like, if you like RPGs in any capacity, play this game. And for me, I was like, I want to play this, and I played it, and it was amazing. I loved it much more than I thought I would. I loved the charm, the atmosphere, I loved the characters, I loved everything, and it's it was kind of the game that really sold me on Atlas. Not the only game, but it was definitely a major factor as to why. And to this day, it's still one of my favourites, and I'm glad it's come to PC, because I just love knowing that other people played how amazing this game, because someone else, my friends, got it on Steam, and she was like, I'm going addicted to it for over 20 hours. It's I'm so happy you're into this game, because it's amazing. And I really hope that with the Persona 25th anniversary that this game is no longer console exclusive to the Vita, because more people deserve to play it. Lots of people bought a Vita just for P4, and it fully deserves it. Right, the next stack is going to be Falcom Games, for ones I've got anyway on the Vita, because I was introduced to Falcom on the Vita. So we have the Cold Steel 1 and 2, which is the first two games in the Erebonia arc, which is the arc that most people who've played the games in the West will know of, because that's the one that got localized on consoles physically and consistently, where Trails in the Sky, that trilogy took a long time, and we've only just about to get Zero and AO, the Crossbell trilogy in English, it's a really huge interconnected series, and it kind of blew me away, because these games are basically, if you play the Trails series, you'll know that they're quite interconnected in their stories, where each character has their own little story and that kind of thing. It's a lot, but I loved it. The gameplay clicked, and it kind of came a time for me where I was in a very toxic weeaboo hell, basically, and these were the games that kind of started to get me out of it, which I'll talk about on weeaboo for another time, because that's something else I played a lot of La Vita, which I'll actually touch on a little bit later, which, but I'm glad I checked out Falcom, who are now one of my favourite developers and have never consistently disappointed me. As well as Trails, I also played East, which I showed this game earlier, and this was the latest Vita game I beat. I went to a different part of the country and actually beat the game. Well, I started the game there, played through most of it, and then beat it a few days after coming back because this game is great. It's not the first East I've played, it's the third East, but for a lot of people who've also played Falcom games, this is one of the first games I played because it was like one of the must-play RPGs, and even then it's like a port of East 4, which is not really a port, it's basically more of like a reimagining what was originally made for the Vita, but then got ported to PS4 and PC. And yeah, this is a great game as well, and I love it to bits as well. And yeah, that's lovely. A couple of miscellaneous RPGs now, and the next one is a Vanillaware game, and Vanillaware are a developer that I want to play all the games for. This is the one I've played. I started playing Half of Odin Sphere, which I had to restart, which isn't here by the way, it's in the pile, but this game I loved because it enabled me to check out this world. Nice 10-hour hack and slash, quite short because it had 2 routes, but the art style for these games is absolutely beautiful. And the art style is what sold me, as well as the music, and it's just easy to play. And this is still exclusive to the Vita. It is a port of the game on the Wii, but this is the definitive version. I really wish it gets ported as well because it's still one of the few exclusives on the Vita that's worth playing, in my opinion anyway. And yeah, this game was a ton of fun, and just kind of like, it was also one of the first games I imported as well from the US, because at the time, when you play niche games in the past, a lot of time you'd have to import because publishers would not release the games physically in Europe if at all, which was quite annoying, which is something that if you bought physicals for the Vita you'd be quite accustomed for. I also played my first Tales games on the Vita. This is Tales of Hearts R, which is one of the Tales games that was released for the Vita. In Japan there were 2, which was this game and a remake of Innocence R, which we didn't get, but this game was the first Tales game I played. It's basically you go around as core to go out and get the heart pieces for the other character, Kohaku, and it starts off from there and it goes off, and it really blew me away. Like, I loved the music, the atmosphere, the tone, the skits. I really liked it. I with this game, I ended up becoming a fan of the Tales series because of this game, and I really, really enjoyed it. And yeah, this is still exclusive as well. It was originally a DS game, but that was only released in Japan. But if you want to play this is the only way to play it. In English, it's exclusive to the Vita still, and it's still a great game. Now, another game which is unlikely to get ported, and this is one of the last RPGs I'll be talking about, is Orashaika. Now, this is one I never finished, but I love unique RPGs. This is basically, a bloodline is cursed, and you have to keep going through the cycle of conceiving new members of the clan, and basically, like, go to find the demon that cursed you all, and basically get it removed. It goes through a cycle where families, like, rapidly grow and age and die, and it's really cool. Like, it's very much a Japanese anime, not even anime, it's ukiyo-e, so it's like, if you're into Japanese culture, you really appreciate this one. It's like, it got a bit grindy for me because it was like, it got very monotonous because it at its core is a dungeon crawler, but I have a lot of respect for this game, even though I never finished it, and it's this kind of experience that I like playing games for, where it's just so different but also so amazing. And yeah, it's phenomenal. And yeah, this is an Asian English import because this is a game that you have to import as well, because like, this only got digital in the West, because a lot of Vita games also got digital, and I really wasn't into that. But this game, you can, at the time, still get on the PSN because that's not shut down yet, and I definitely suggest this one because it's still exclusive. And given nowadays Sony only gives a shit about the West in terms of appealing for their games, I don't think this is going to ever get ported, to be honest. I think this will probably be exclusive to the Vita forever, and the series won't ever come back unless it's a phone game. But definitely check that one out. Alright, for the next game is another trilogy of games, but well, not a trilogy, but kind of like another set of games, which, now these games are crap, because I kind of touched on these in a patient gaming podcast I did the other day, which I'll plug in the description, because I talk about being a patient gamer, and these games are one reason why. And I played these whole trilogy back to back, or almost back to back, because I did one first, and then Tales of Hearts are in the stack there, and then the last 2 games because they came out around the same time, and that's the Neptunia Rebirth trilogy. These games are mechanically almost identical because they were very low budget remakes. Kind of mediocre, but I do kind of have a soft spot for them because, like, Rebirth 1 was among my first imports as well. This was, at a time, the aesthetic and the tone just blew me away, and that's the reason why I got hooked. And the gameplay battle system is actually pretty original. The downside is that it's just used all across Compile Arts games, and there's not much variation between them. So this game was a remake of the first Neptunia on the PS3, which is known for being a bit of a terrible game. I've seen footage of it. It looks bad. I'm not going to play it. I don't care for it. But it's still a game I played. And these 2 are the sequels, which are even more low budget because Mark II and Victory, which were the games these are remakes of respectively, there wasn't as much adjusting. And Rebirth 2's endings are really grindy and that. Why would you port that? But I did end up playing these, but at the end I got a bit burnt out, and it's like, I'm not going to play these games again. And yeah, some of the content in these is a bit problematic. So it's like, I don't really want to play these games again. But I can kind of see why people are drawn to it, because it's really unique in terms of its satire on the games industry. There's nothing like it, whether it be in the Japanese or Western side. So I can see why people are drawn to it, and even still goes to this day. Anyway, I'm going to talk about the rhythm games now. I've got 2, which are both imports. And they are Taiko no Tatsujin on the Vita and IAVT Colourful. And these games are... importing with the Vita was when I really got blown away about checking games out from Japan. And these are 2 I picked up. IAVT is one of my favourite games on the Vita in general because it's basically a Hatsune Miku product diva game, but with the IA Vocaloid. So instead of Hatsune Miku, and developed by a different company, which, fun fact, this was directed by the same director of Senran Kagura, even though these games are nothing like whatsoever. And this is a good game. It's easier than Project Diva and more accessible. Half my music in English. I love it a lot. It's great. And it's definitely something I recommend. It's still exclusive. I really, really want it to be ported to the Switch, or even a sequel made that could even come to the West, because this game is amazing. I love it to bits. And still one of my favourites to this day. Whereas Taiko is basically... every major platform in Japan gets a Taiko game, and Vita got this one. It also got 2 Idolmaster spin-offs with the Taiko gameplay, which I want to get, but this game's great. It's basically focuses on Vocaloid, anime, and gaming, which is basically up my street, so one reason I played it, and it's great. Even got collaborations with like Falcon and the theme from Freedom Wars, and a bunch of other things as well. I love it. And it's like, if you have a Vita, this is one to get. And the Vita does have a good import library as well. Like, I want to get some more from that library in the future at some point. So things like Heidelberg Tap Dance Hero, get Miracle Girls Festival again, because I had that, but I had to sell that as well. And yeah, just a fantastic console for rhythm games. Especially as it uses Bluetooth, so you don't need to plug it in like you did for the Switch until a few months ago. I've gone to the Vision Awards now, and there's still kind of a few gaps in my Vision Award Vita library, like some games that here I've not played, or I sold, or I don't have, or skipped altogether, because there was a nice range on the Vita, but like in Japan, a lot of the games that came out for it, especially in terms of exclusives, were ports of visual novels, especially games on PC, which we're only just now getting in English on other platforms by other companies, which we're not going to get, but they exist, so... But one company to deliver in spades was Idea Factory and Nero Tomate label. And thanks to them and Axes, they basically introduced the genre to the West for the most part. Although there were like a few others that helped play the role as well, in general, but not just on Vita. But on Vita, it was basically Idea Factory or Exceed's Otome game, which I haven't completed, so that's not in this little pile. But first one I played from this lineup was Bad Apple Wars, which is still exclusive to this day. It's one of only a handful that's still exclusive. There's this, Period Cube, and another one which I'll get onto. This game was basically Angel Beats, but Otome, and it's really good. I think for a first game it was great, and it was enough to kind of sell me on it, and nice and simple, nice and laid back a bit, because there was a story, but I really like these games. They're really sweet, and this game was fun, a lot of fun. And next to probably my favourites on the console, behind my actual favourite, or my main top favourite. And they're the Psychedelica Games. These are kind of darker to me games, quite short, but these games are basically like the story in here was gripping, the music and these were amazing. I like those bandos as well, and the art, it was amazing. I love these games. I actually have the art books for these, actually. These games were so good that I've got the art for them. And I want the soundtrack as well, because these did get physical. These games are so great. It really sold me on these games, on the genre as well, in terms of its powerful storytelling. And yeah, some of my favourites. And I really hope they get ported to Switch again, or at some point, because these games are great. And these are on PC, so if you want to play them, I suggest jumping on them on Steam. And a lot of the Automata games are on Steam. Not all of them, but a sizable number of them are, and you can play them quite easily on there. And you can still get them on PSN at the moment. And finally, my favourite Otome I've played to date, which is 9. This is one of Otomate's big pillar titles. Like, it was a really big IP. It's not as big as like Hakuoki or Code Realize, which if you've even heard of Otome, you would have heard of those. But this one's really good as well. It's on other platforms, but the only English version we got is this Vita release. And it's basically more romance oriented, which I really like. I really, really like that. And a bit more like, there's like 9 husbandos in like 9 husbandos, all split so they can be romanced by like 3 protagonists, which not in this picture of that, but the husbandos are there, and this game was great. Really unique structure, the routes were shorter, more bite-sized. It's really interesting, I love this game. Such an interesting story with some unique settings and characters. This is my favourite, and I really hope the Switch version gets released in English, because that exists in Japan as well, bundled with a fan disc. I want this game in English, and even on PC as well, because more people deserve to play it, and if you get a Vita and want to play a VN, definitely get that one. Got a few more left, and these are the games that made the most impact on me in terms of VNs, and the ones I've beaten as well. We have like Danganronpa, which this is the only one I've played, the first one, but it's great, I liked it. I play a lot of recommendations, I've seen a lot of people recommend it, and I can see why people are massive fans of this series, because it's great. And thanks to the Vita and the audience there, this is what helped to keep the series, get this series bigger, get it multi-platform, get Spike Chunsoft some more attention, and help more people get into VNs as a whole, which is great. Then we have Marvel of Alternative, which is like the only Bishoujo game I have for the Vita in terms of VNs. Yeah, this game was very, very hard. It's I know it was the best VN ever, and I really wanted to dig into this one, and I got like, I think like 2/3 of the way through, but it's such a triggering game to play, which I know going in, but man, this game hits you really hard. It hits you like really, really hard because of its content. It's really hard to go into without spoilers, but I had to put it down, and then this was before my mental health went downhill because of other reasons, so it's like, I haven't been able to come back to this because I know if I play it I'm going to get a bit triggered and distressed because of some of the content that happens, but it's like, what a ride, and I'm glad this series is still thriving, and I hope to see this series come to consoles again, because aside from the original trilogy that's on the Vita, so is this and Muv-Luv, the first 2 games. There's also on Steam fan discs and other games in the series, which I'd like to play, possibly, depending on if I finish this one, but yeah, fantastic the end. Be prepared to cry a lot. Alright, and I'm going to move on to the last 2 games I've picked out, which are like one of my favourite VNs of all time, because it's basically one game split into 2, and they are the last 2 games in the Untitled series, which I really liked. These blew me away, and yeah, these where do I begin? These games were absolute feel rides. These games were phenomenal in everything, especially Mask of Truth. Like a lot of these games did have some like fan service, which is quite typical for games, especially by the developer Aquaplus, for things I won't get into here, but which is what I expected. But as time went on, it was like the first game started with a lot of slice of life filler, which wasn't my fan, but I was still kind of hooked by the story in the world, and now it's gone on from there, and it's become a much bigger thing. Mask of Truth is fantastic, one of the best VNs ever. The translation for those games was considered so good in some ways. In the eyes of even translators, it actually surpasses the Japanese version. That's how good the translation was. Voice acting was gripping as well. It's got tactics RPG gameplay, but it's basically a VN. You don't play Utah games for the gameplay, you play them for the story, but the gameplay's good as well. It was truly something that I loved a lot, and it just couldn't put the Vita down. It was amazing, and yeah, it was fantastic, pure fantastic joy, which I really liked about it, and I really hope I can play more games in the series soon. And at the time of this video, there's been a announcement for Monochrome Moebius, which is basically the next game, which includes characters that are younger versions of characters from those two games, as well as older ones from the first game, I think. So yeah, it's a lovely console. I don't play Vita much anymore. I've still got games I want to get through, especially like some games that haven't been ported to Switch, or games I've got but are on Switch and just really don't want to get other copies, and relative imports and just things I want to rebuy because I had other games as well. Like I had Sharon the Wanderer, which I had to get on Switch. I had to sell a bunch of games as well. But I want to buy them back eventually, which because they're just games so they can wait. But I love this console. I still to this day really love this console. It's like one of my favourites ever. It was always going to be a really niche little product, and it's for me it's it introduced me to so many things. It defined a lot of my gaming taste, but still continue to this day with the Switch, with other consoles, and of course factored into Milla's game room and things I have on there and things I will continue to talk about on there. Things that are this is what defines me in games. A lot of the stuff here defines me, whether I want to or not. Things like playing Persona 4 Golden defines me as much as Norm 9 or even Neptunia, Muramasa, Tales, and it's and that's kind of way to listen to a little homage video and talk about some of the games I got and why I love it, because the Vita is an amazing console. And while the handheld at this point is actually dead, a lot of people made it a meme about the Vita dying when it's been alive the whole time. At this point, the Vita is basically dead, and that's okay. It's just dead in terms of service, because the store will eventually go down for real. But it will always live on the heart of people like me. The games will always live on, and especially for emulation, once Vita emulation really gets off the ground, and the games will get ported again, because eventually almost all these games will be ported, if they haven't already, because Vita was known for its games getting ported a lot, but that's okay. But yeah, I have this little collect console, and happy 10th anniversary Vita, one of the best consoles ever. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble and seeing me talk about games, and if you like what you heard, subscribe, etc., and so on and so forth. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.